All right. So now the long form newsletter content writing becomes much more fun and it becomes much more clear once you have quite a bit of stuff inside of your mind or just the ideas, theories, concept discoveries that you have, right? And so I want to kind of outline a newsletter with you that I'm going to write next. And you can see I have a bunch of ideas here with the digital society. And so, again, this is the digital society is my way of taking another concept that I listened to on actualize.org, where he talks about the social matrix, where how there are certain parts of society that we all anchor and perceive reality from, like the school system, the like public leaders, and other things like that. And there's a digital society. And this sparked an idea for an entirely new book of mine where the digital society, it's like you have your own education system. There is an education system online, but it's decentralized. There are public leaders, but they're individuals, right? And how the digital society is kind of, everything's going decentralized. I could bring in NFTs, I could start to study those, pursue my curiosity, see what I'm saying here, and start to connect things back and forth and create new knowledge. And so let's start with this one. So again, with this, when you come to write a newsletter or even a thread, you go here, you click the all-in-one template, and then I already labeled this one how to become top 1% because I'm not afraid of rewriting my old newsletters. We just recently looked at a newsletter of mine that was how to become top 1%. My ideas have evolved since then, and I want to write it again from a place of having better stories and a better way of helping people understand it. Again, this is all a process of iteration. I didn't really like my original notion of the passion process. I didn't really like my how I painted it in the first place. And so let's go here. How to become top 1%. And so I mentioned the mastery method here, which is in short the passion process, but I'm going to be fleshing it out in here, which is the learning process. And I am very perceptive of my life where I've been riding motorcycles all of my life, and my roommate recently got a motorcycle, right? And so I got one as well. And he's been learning how to ride it, and it's really made me perceptive of how people actually learn things. And so he did exactly what I already have in a lot of my processes, which is you find mentors online, YouTube, on how to like learn the principles of riding a motorcycle. You need to hold in the clutch, you need to learn how to shift, you need to understand how to turn, you need to understand just the basics, right? And so you understand the basics, um, and then right, you learn the fundamentals, you study mentors on YouTube, you start making connections and having ideas about how to apply your learning to real life. So we're having ideas, and as you're learning, the dopamine is kicking in, and we're thinking of all these things we can do, right? Oh, we could ride here, we could ride there, we could ride uh, to see our friends, we could go up to the mountains, and you're having all of these ideas and making these connections that you never have before. That's what learning does, is it expands your awareness and makes new things possible for you. And then you reap the benefits of progress and feedback, and you live a good life because you are consistently learning new things. And so now the research I could include in here the mastery method, which is a process that I created. I could include, what else could I loot? I don't really have anything. This is mostly from experience. That's another thing to keep in mind, is that once you do this enough, you start making the same discoveries as everyone else. I've came across multiple things where I say something like on Twitter and someone plugs under me and they're like, oh, this guy also said this. And it's like some huge account who like has a really well-known concept about it. And it's like, I didn't even know that guy. I came to the same conclusion just because I've been like very perceptive of this stuff throughout my life, right? And so I'm sure there's different ways of learning, and uh, yeah, that's the main thing. And so here I could include tweets. So I could either write tweets and then include them in here to plug into my newsletter, or books that I've read. So Mastery by Robert Greene is something I've been reading, and there's definitely something in there where I could research it further. So let's just say Mastery by, I think his name's Robert, Robert Greene. And I do have some of these in my Readwise. So if I go to, oh, dude, look at that. See, even another connection. I could bring in the experience paradox here, where you don't feel like you're ready to ride a motorcycle when in fact you are, right? And I could, you see how it gains multiple use cases for other things. So it's just one connection. You'll make these connections on your own. But in Readwise, just to kind of bring this up as an example, I have Mastery by Robert Greene. And now, so yeah. So Mastery. So let's talk about like mastering riding motorcycles or mastering something enough to become top 1%. And this is just an idea. This isn't the actual headline yet. And so I can look at this, and you need two things. So I could bring this in, right? Where in when you're learning the fundamentals, or when you're learning as a whole, you need technical proficiency and what was the other? Social know-how. So I could use that as a quote. I could quite literally use that as a quote inside of my newsletter to help bring more credibility to what I'm saying, right? And make my newsletter stand out above others. And then I can use that as idea generation for my own processes and other things like that. But let's leave it at that. So research, technical proficiency, and social know-how. And I can read more about that by just going to the actual page. In this case, it's in short form, but I could research it. I could look up the two components of mastery from Robert Greene and read summaries on it online and reference those as well. But yeah, that's the main thing I can think of. I can reference my older articles as well. So my old article on how to become the top 1%, old newsletter on top 1%, and the passion process. Could even bring intelligent imitation into this, because intelligent imitation is just a subsection of the mastery method, right? It's studying mentors and making and creating understanding it from a way that you understand it so you can do it better, right? So I could start to incorporate all of these different things that I've created and refined over time into this somehow. And so now planning it out, the topic, and what do you know? All of this stuff, we've already written it. We've already written it in here. And so the topic is, I guess you could, well, it's learning a new skill. And you can see how this stuff can be positioned towards whatever you talk about, right? Where if you're a web developer, you can talk about learning a coding language with this, right? You aren't even studying coding. You're studying your interests, your curiosities, which is, in this case, in my case, it's learning how to learn, learning how to think, mastering certain things. And so you can bring a completely fresh perspective to this. Like if you're a web developer, you can teach people how to learn web development, and you having that knowledge will only help people learn faster, right? So you become a better teacher this way. And now, so the topic is learning a new skill for me, because I talk about skill acquisition a lot, right? So learning copywriting, learning email marketing, learning other things, but it can be anything. You want to learn how to lift weights? Are you a health account? How are you going to teach people how to lift weights, right? What else is there? I know one of you talks about no-code tools. How are you going to teach people how to learn the no-code tools that you're telling people about, right? You position it in any which way according to your domain of mastery, right? It's all starting to come together. So visualize. I am definitely going to visualize the mastery method. I just write this down here because I go and I draw it in my notebook, but it's pretty much going to be just like a visualization with little connections, and you do this however you please. And you be creative with it. And I can't really tell you how to do that. That's not what this course is about. But I'm going to visualize the mastery method so I can add more depth to the newsletter. And as we'll find out in the next module, the visualizations can be put on Instagram or used as different firepower here and there. It's all cohesive. All of this is cohesive, and that's why we've been going in this the way we've been learning this. And so the big problem with, or problems with learning is well, we've talked about before in, I forget where it is, because I have like 3 of these now from creating the cohort. But so in order to get experience, you have to get 0 experience. So we can come here and we can look at the problems. People are holding themselves back. People are sitting there watching motorcycle tutorials all day without actually getting on their motorcycle and testing it out and learning, right? And so that expands even more. We could even tie in objections or look at these. You don't feel like you can ride a motorcycle based on what you just learned. You just have to go and do it. What else? But you can flesh these out, right? So objections to learning, I don't really want to go down the entire motorcycle map. I'm more so using the story, the personal experience of the motorcycle itself to start and frame the argument I'm going to present in the actual thing. So I've heard this before. This isn't really my big idea, but you don't need to spend 10,000 hours learning to become the top 1%. So actually that is kind of my own angle on it. I know 10,000 hours is someone else's concept, but this could be my hook. This could be my headline, right? Because this is a very compelling part of this. And if you remember the attention aspect of this and how to create hooks, it's the most compelling part of your firepower, in a sense. I would call it marketing firepower, but in this, it's content firepower. So your content firepower, this is a hook in itself. How to become the top percent, gotta write it. You can't keep it in your head. How to become the top 1% without spending 10,000 hours learning. Thread. If that isn't a killer thread idea, I don't know what is. But then, yeah, you continue fleshing this out, right? And now let's walk through the APAG. So this is going to be all of the above because it's a newsletter, right? So I have a story, I have probably a step-by-step list on how to learn. That's also a concept, and it's advice. But if this were a thread, it may only be the step-by-step list on how to learn fast, or the concept, or maybe just advice, or the story, right? And so now attention, we already have the hook. So 10,000 hours, you don't have to spend 10,000 hours learning to become the top 1%. Perspective. So the problems associated with that is people, so there's problems up here, but you think that you don't have, people think that they don't have enough, again, write it out. People think they don't have enough experience to just start. That is a limiting belief. What other problems does it cause? It causes them to never take action and get stuck, while others aren't thinking and just go do it. And I could even bring in another argument here that I am aware of, where like smart people think, dumb people act. That's a simplified way of putting it, but I can make the connection there because I've written a tweet about this before as well. So now this sparks an idea for a tweet that I can add to the research Let's see if I can find it because it was a while ago. So, is it stupid? Excuse me. Ah, smart people are dumb because they overthink risk. Dumb people are smart because they get shit done. Be dumb, my friends. So, I'm going to copy that one. That works perfectly for like research and just, again, creating more ideas. So I can embed that in here. And now I can include that in my article, because that's what I do in a lot of my articles is I use different pieces of information in order to put across the perspective I'm trying to put across. Now, the advantage of this, so why my perspective is better, this is pretty much my argument, right? And the things that I have to back this. So the why behind all of this stuff. Let's think. So in this case, yeah. So in this case, I'm bringing up the entire motorcycle thing, which I could talk about at the start, but that's the thing with this is it's all variable and it's really dependent on how you want to do it. But I could talk about the motorcycle story and how he learned to ride a motorcycle, the steps to doing so that I will eventually talk about down here, steps to learning fast. Steps to doing so, the connections you start to make, and I have other things that I talk about in my actual database where I've read The Art of Impossible. I understand that pattern recognition and excitement is what causes dopamine, and it enhances learning and it solidifies it in your head. So I could talk about pattern recognition and dopamine and how it kind of enforces the learning process. And yeah, I could create an entire story around this. And then steps to learning fast, and boom, now I have an article outlined, right? And then I can start to outline the key points, talking points, outline it, break it down as much as I possibly can. And then what I do is I leave this. I do this at the start of the week. And then as I'm going about my day, as I'm on my walks, and I start actually consuming more information, more ideas come to me, and I come back and I continue adding to it and writing things down. And then eventually I edit it, and I publish it. Good to go.